I'm going to make the assumption that because you have a dream game, you probably want to get started in game development. You might have even watched some videos and cracked open your game engine of choice. Or maybe you've been making games for a long time, but are feeling a bit lost and unguided. Current game development advice seems to center around how to find success, and almost every time that is specifically financial success. Game development is propped up as a solution for the ails of modern society. If you can just achieve passive income, which is a whole other conversation I will try to avoid, you can be free to enjoy life. Generally speaking, I want to make games. That is my beginning and end for game development. I enjoy making games for the sake of making them. Potentially earning money from them is a nice benefit from my efforts, but it's certainly not a guarantee, and through my personal journey of game development, it's been far from reliable. At the end of the day, the games industry is just that, an industry. Beyond that, it greatly overlaps with the entertainment industry. The only difference is it has a severe lacking of people who study the humanities. It is not a friend or a cozy solution to all your problems. And just like the entertainment industry, a lot of the same ills afflict the game industry as well. I say all this to mean that you should really understand why you want to make games before getting started. It'll be a huge help to remind yourself when you're a week into bashing your skull against the desk because you just can't figure out a seemingly simple problem. To get started with this little essay, I want to review what some of the common advice is on YouTube for people wanting to get started in game development. I watched quite a few videos, even a few from creators I greatly dislike. But of course, across the survey, patterns arose, and I found some reasonable advice that I agree should be given to new developers. The advice that I would say is most useful to beginner game developers are: start small, focus on the things you know, try to learn more about the areas you most enjoy, and have fun. These points are all brilliant advice. They are even concepts I've stumbled into over the years myself. And if all you wanted was what I think is the best advice out there, you can tune off now. Have a great day, and don't forget to give your mom a hug for me. Now, assuming you want a little more, let's get interesting and take this to court. Let's talk about dream games, putting them on trial for their lives. Now, I don't really have the right inflection for dramatics, so let's present the case. For the purposes of clarity, I want to start by defining a dream game as a game that started as an idea in your head that lingers for days, weeks, months, maybe even years. And even though you might not know exactly how to make that game right now, you definitely want to make it someday. So while the specifics of your case may vary from mine or any other game developers, I'll try to hit some of the more common points. The cases against making your dream game are many. Almost every point I mentioned earlier about getting started making games goes against the typical dream game. Since they tend to be comparable to AA or AAA games in design, they're usually wildly out of scope for a beginner. They usually include many features and systems that you just don't know how to make, and they're more likely to overwhelm you than to teach you if you try to take it all on at once. Moreover, the development cycle for such a game would be tiresomely long. You're more likely to give up and burn out on game development than have any degree of success. Now, in the case for dream games, they are just that, a game you desperately want to make. Some would say it's best to strike while the iron is hot. Start crafting while you have that initial passion, because once it's snuffed out, it is so much harder to actually get started. In addition, one of the main pieces of advice for getting started is to have fun. And what's more fun than directly working towards your dream? Beyond that, your dream game is unique to you. Your particular flair on this game will extend delight to the players. Maybe you really should get started on that game right now. Crack open that editor. Get going. Maybe neither is wholly right, and both are slightly wrong. And I think I know one of the reasons so much advice gets stuck in these weeds. Either they are too focused on financial success, or they are strictly focused on a single game. I am willing to bet for every indie game you love, it is not their first game. And for those that it is, such as Balatro, they are an extreme outlier. If you're just getting started and you have your dream game idea, don't you want it to be the very best that it can be? I certainly do. I even have several dream games that I've been shelving for years because I've been afraid to try them. Or when I did, I got frustrated and burnt out on them. Or I had other factors in my life that made it hard to pursue that dream. But recently, I found a renewed purpose for my grandiose game ideas. The games that might be impossible for me to manage right now due to factors like lack of understanding of different tools, lack of experience, and general stupidity. I have a dream game series that I call the Realms of Agartha. I came up with them early on in my game development journey. In fact, most of it was designed while I was sitting in my ninth grade geometry class, because I was bored. This dream concept has altered and evolved over the years. Originally, it was supposed to be a Minecraft mod, similar to my favorite single mod, Divine RPG. Later, it was to be a 2D JRPG style game series. Then an ARPG. Eventually, a cinematic 3D action adventure game. And so later, it looped back around to being a 2D RPG. My most recent iteration was what I had intended to be the entry point for the series, an action survival horror game. All of these ideas I started and then quit for one reason or another. I still even have lots of the papers I wrote out designs on. And like almost any autistic person, this world lives on in my vibrant mind. Now, my journey towards these games has been arduous, and I want you to stop and really consider if you want to expend the time and effort it takes to make the games you want to make. And take the rose glasses off for a moment, because that will mean less time with your friends, your family, your loved ones. It'll mean less time to decompress after a stressful week of work. It will mean putting your ideas on hold for long stretches of time, because this thing that may or may not ever earn you any money has to take the back seat when there's bills to pay. Do you want that? If you're still with me, let's go over how I approach this problem. We are both on a game development journey. There's really no point thinking about who's more successful, because at the end of the day, games are an art made for people to consume. At a cynical level, your indie games are more so content that 0 or more YouTubers will consume in order to create their own mildly transformative content, which they can earn money from. So, like the YouTuber Gambit said in one of the videos I watched for research, if you're in it for the money, give up now. So, because we are making games for the art and for the joy of creation, and we can't really expect a single cent for our efforts, how should we proceed? While some highly privileged people will say quit your job and go full time on your game, or worse, have a child so you can have the right amount of drive to finish your game, I'd like to propose a different kind of trial. Any game development project can be broken down into different modules. Some engines will abstract this away from you, but it's still important to think about the kinds of actions the player can take, the way the world is presented, the logic that moves the camera so the player and their environment are always pleasing to the eye, but also useful for the player to make meaningful decisions about their next input. These are all really important things to consider when making a game. Whenever I have a game idea, dream game or not, I write up a document describing every design for it that I can think of. Sometimes this is very specific, sometimes very vague. What's important is that I can remember that I want to make it. From there, I pick out different concepts I want to learn. Every single project you make should teach you something. Otherwise, you're just going through the motions and you aren't really growing as a developer. Crucially, this does not mean that every game must be bigger than the last. I made and released a ton of Game Jam games while I was in college, and some of them even work. But the individual concepts I learned from making them is almost of more value to me going forwards than those games themselves. In some games, I try to play with an interesting narrative style, or a visual style, or a specific mechanic I want to replicate. Every time I'm adding a new thing to my tool belt that I have relevant confidence in producing. Once your tool belt is pretty full, you should be using those tools when you can so you can keep refining them. Never let any one tool get rusty. The reason being that every tool should build up towards that description of your dream game. There are lots of little things your game will need, and your first so many games likely won't be it. But every game you make can then take you one step closer to that dream game. And I'd argue that is a very worthy pursuit and creative endeavor. Now, this plan that I've put out is, put simply, not great. I'm not some genius sent from the heavens, or some youth pastor type claiming to have all the answers to unlimited success. Arguably, I'm an idiot. So take it from an idiot that you are going to fail. Sometimes you're going to hate what you work on, or what you've made. But that's just fine. Life itself is going to have ups and downs. No creative person just pumps out infinite masterpieces. Most will make one and spend their whole lives chasing that. Some never will. But honestly, that's okay. The crucial element of my plan is that you treat game development first and foremost as a hobby. Your hobby shouldn't have to make you money. And if you are in a situation where you need it to, making games is probably one of the worst choices you could make. As a hobby, it's okay if one piece you're working on has to sit in the garage for a month because more important things are going on in your life. Maybe a rough breakup or a big move in your life. Maybe you just want to try other things for a bit. It's okay because it's just a hobby. Making games can be enjoyable and valuable, even if you never make a single dollar from it, because it can just be a hobby. I am a strong believer in the idea that a new idea done badly does so much more for the audience and society at large than the same old slop idea with a $1 billion budget thrown at it. So I say go, and do that new idea badly. Obviously do it well if you have it in you, but maybe you have to do it badly first. Maybe it's just a 10-minute game that barely covers everything you wanted, and that's okay. Maybe it's a game that takes you years to make and still doesn't find commercial success. If you've always understood that it was a hobby and that you probably won't see any money from it, that's totally okay. And maybe the dumb little game you make will inspire someone else, and they'll make something amazing that does reach financial success. Isn't the artistic community made better overall when more people make new and weird things?